Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be discussing the 4-2-3-1, how to build one from scratch. It's a tactic that I've used quite a lot, really aggressive if used correctly. As always, we're going to start from scratch. Start with create our own style, pick on the 4-2-3-1. We'll start with the defensive midfield, attack midfield wide, click on confirm, and there we have our preset. As always, what I like to do is go to pick without restriction, pick the best 11, click OK. So when you kind of first start your kind of game for a 4-2-3-1, as always, like I say, get to know your squad, get to know who players where, find out what kind of midfielders you've got, find out what your attack midfielders are like, your wide men, get a feel for it, see if you have the right players to play in that position, and try and adjust accordingly. So kind of preset wise, you'll see we give us kind of fullbacks, two settled defenders on defend, a DM on defend, a deep line playmaker on support, a winger on the right, winger on the left, the attacking midfield in the centre there, and an advance forward up top. Probably not a bad way at the start, to be honest with you, but I do find, like I say, I mentioned before, the 4-3-3, depending on what foot your wingers have. I mean, I'm quite lucky with Sunderland here. Roberts is left-footed, Clark's right-footed, so I kind of either have them as wingers, if I like. I'm that natural left footer. Sometimes you may find you haven't got a left footer and you dealt with a lot of right-footed players. Then you have to kind of convert them to an inverted winger, inverted inside forward. So, like I say, get to know your squad, see what you're working with. I know last time the 4-3-3, I didn't go into too much depth on other player roles. I didn't kind of talk about trequartistas or advanced playmakers on the wings. Like I say, this is more for kind of your new person starting out with Football Manager. Like I say, I've got a little bit of experience. I'm sometimes messing around with those new roles, but I think I've seen it on Facebook where people are asking how to start building their own tactic. You know, where do you start from? And I think you start chucking trequartistas in and Rodmonteurs and whatever you call it, pronounce it, all these little fancy ones. I think if you're at that level anyway where you understand them, I don't think you're at the beginner level. So try to keep things a little bit basic, a little bit straightforward. Kind of, to be honest with you, this is kind of how I set up anyway. I tend not to mess around too much. On the odd occasion, I have used different roles to try them out with varying levels of success. But for a kind of a beginner, try and keep things simple, just to kind of obviously get people introduced into building their own tactics. Something I've learned over a period of time, watching kind of other content creators. So, as always, we're going to go through it and kind of discuss a few little things about this formation. To me, this is the formation that's probably a good, I suppose, what would you say, maybe it's a good counter-attacking version to the 4-3-3. So if you do come up with 4-3-3, this is a tactic to use to maybe kind of dominate that tactic, if you like. It's probably one of the most common ones you'll see the AI use in game. It's one I kind of always struggle with. If I am using a 4-3-3, I do find as though I kind of, as I'm getting hit on the counter attack, whether I'm just kind of getting kind of overrun in midfield. I'm not 100% sure, but it's definitely one I struggle with. So, but again, one I like to use, I've used this on a couple of saves now. My Sunderland save, which I did a kind of overview of that tactic. Got promoted to the Championship, 102 points, I think, and then finished 5th in the season after in the Premier League with a tactic very similar to this. So we'll go through it role by role, discuss little variations. Again, very similar to the 4-3-3 in terms of kind of width and wide kind of attacking players, but slightly different in midfield. You see slight sort of differences, but we'll discuss them as we go through. So once again, quite similar to 4-3-3. Goalkeeper on defend here. Either leave it on that, or if you prefer a sweeper keeper, again, sweeper keeper on defend or sweeper keeper on support. Like I say, I tend not to go on sweeper keeper on attack. Like I say, I tend not to have goalkeepers that can kind of fulfill that role. And then if sweeper keeper on support, to be honest with you, I tend to stick on defend. Try and keep them a little bit more compact, a little bit less mistakes made, and kind of see how that goes. Fullbacks again, like always, quite similar to 4-3-3. Depending on kind of how you want to play. I know in the 4-3-3 formation, I mentioned picking a team that you're quite familiar with. In Sunderland's case, I know the team quite well, hence why I picked it. So what I would tend to do is kind of try and emulate that sometimes. Again, Sunderland tend not to play with wing backs. You will very rarely see our wing backs getting up to the byline. You tend to see them kind of hovering around this area, maybe cutting in as well. Around about here. Very rare, And obviously, kind of, how kind of inverted wing backs end up kind of this position. So we end up kind of looking like that at times. Although Trey Hume is also known to kind of drop into the defence, while say maybe someone like Owen 9 tends to kind of push up a little bit into that kind of midfield role, like a libero style role, like I discussed in the 4-3-3. But like I say, when you're picking kind of teams, it is always good to have an idea of how you want to play, what style, like say maybe a team you support and you want to try and recreate that. But we'll go through and we'll discuss a few things. So again, start with the fullbacks. What I like to do is, and something I've had a little bit of success with, is have these as like a wing back, maybe on support. Because I know in my mind I'm going to have my kind of inside forwards and inverted wingers very attacking. So I like to have a little bit of support on the wings. So sit them to support. And certainly with the championship, when I first tried this tactic on the tactic I used for Sunderland itself, I like to have these kind of cut inside with the ball. Again, kind of emulating kind of what they do in real life at times. So you'll see them kind of run up here, obviously cut inside. I think in my mind, when I've got players kind of running in the box like this, kind of Dak kind of pushing up, depending on how his role, having them kind of come in, cutting in, gives them more options to pass into the centre of kind of the attacking area there. So that's how it worked in my mind. Did have a lot of success with it. I did change it when I got the Premier League. I found I was maybe getting, I don't know, losing possession, the wing backs a bit too much, that higher quality of player in the Premier League. So I kind of brought that off and had these as standard wingers eventually. Again, once I got a bit of quality of player as well, you can play that kind of wing back role. But yeah, and to be honest with you, I know I mentioned the kind of inverted fullback last time for someone like Hume, who plays that role very well. It's not something I've had a great deal of success with, I'll be perfectly honest. I did try that kind of libero, inverted fullback kind of role. Something I haven't quite mastered yet, so something I'll continue to work on. But so yeah, that's what I tend to have. And I have these on kind of wing back on support game. Like I mentioned before, if you do choose to have a winger on here, maybe kind of keep them on support, or maybe as a fullback on support, fullback on attack, maybe less of kind of overlapping. Obviously, because you'll have kind of Clark come up here anyway, and whipping balls in from the byline as a winger. But for this tactic, we're going to try and kind of emulate what we can, how we play anyway. So Roberts, he'd be either inverted winger on support or attack. Clark, exactly the same. Probably attack. They both are very attacking if you see them kind of in real life to try and emulate. But so yeah, I could easily change them inside forwards, just depending, maybe try and mix it up. Sometimes I do like to have a little bit more balance. So if I have one on attack, I may have the other one just on support, or vice versa. And again, I sometimes trying to kind of recreate that with the wing backs. So if I was playing more as a wing back role, not having them cut inside, I may have one of them on attack, and the other one on support as well. It's a little bit of balance. So centre backs, again, entirely up to yourself. If you have kind of good ball playing defenders, and you want them to kind of get up there and start kind of making these kind of longer kind of range passes and picking out all the players and maybe bypassing these slightly, by all means, you can have that on. Maybe have both, maybe just have one. If you have someone like Evans in front who's more defensively minded, you're not really too keen on him having the ball either, but you have a good ball playing defender behind him. You know, he can kind of come on, make them passes that you want to make, and kind of bypass him anyway. But if you have someone like Neil who's fairly good at passing, go passing 14, vision 12, you know, you may have him as a deep light playmaker. By all means, have him as a central defender on defence behind him, try and get the balls to him, and then he'll kind of do that job as well. But it all depends on obviously what roles you choose here. You may choose to have two defensive roles, with having a more attacking minded kind of front four, if you like. But again, it's all about variation. Find out what works best for you. Find out what players you've got. Kind of nail here. Probably more of a, say, a Carolero, box-to-box midfielder in that centre. Position that we've got him in there, his best position is deep line playmaker. That's kind of probably what we'll have him on. I like to have maybe a more kind of creative role, partnered with a kind of a defensive role as well. A few variations of this you can. Obviously, deep line playmaker. Another popular one is the Segundo Volante, either on support or attack. But again, I don't think Neil's really got the attributes for that. You have a look at these kind of, see, maybe kind of lacking a bit of pace. You want someone to get up the pitch quickly. Plus, maybe something with this tactic is maybe you kind of give away a little bit of space in that midfield there. These guys sitting a little bit further back, but having someone like Segundo Volante, You'll try and get up there a little bit higher, a bit higher up the pitch with the ball, a bit like a more aggressive deep line playmaker, really. But for the moment, this is like not a bad partnership. Someone maybe either ball winner midfielder here, defensive midfielder on defend, maybe even an anchor if you want maybe one of your kind of centre backs to be more of a libero. So I did have kind of over 9 as a libero here. See on support. What you tend to find is obviously if I had kind of Hume as that kind of inverted fullback to cover, Neil will probably push forward. I'll probably make a Segundia Volante. So he'd maybe end up here somewhere. He'd drop into here. Well, I'd probably move over. Something like kind of like another back three with 2 pivots here, a little bit more on attack. Obviously, kind of Neil support and the kind of up here somewhere as kind of Volante and support. Obviously, Adam on attack, you probably get a little bit higher. Look to kind of obviously join that attacking 4 if you like, create a 5. So, like I say, plenty of options. But I like to keep it simple and obviously kind of the beginner in mind. Yeah, so that's how I'll probably start off kind of at the back line here. Deep line playmaker on support, maybe. Some kind of defensive midfielder there, anchor or ball winning midfielder. Probably more so a ball winning midfielder, to be honest with you. So, ball winning midfielder, maybe on defend. So, something like that. See somebody you want to kind of close down in that ball back. So you are giving it a little bit away in this midfield, maybe. Certainly, if these are kind of up there, attack and lose possession. Big little gap here, it was exploit. So, maybe want someone to close that ball down, get that ball back. Hopefully, lay off simple passes. You obviously don't want not too creative. And obviously, kind of start the attack of the game. Moving up, again, up to the attacking midfielder. Again, either or. Shadow strike is not a bad one to have if you're going really aggressive. Kind of like a front 4 there. Obviously, Clark cutting in. Roberts kind of coming in. Jack obviously looking to kind of come into that box as well, looking for the balls to be played into him. Bruson is advanced forward there, kind of making kind of runs all over the kind of the front line there, trying to draw defenders out of position. So again, shadow strike is not a bad one to have. Certainly if you have someone who's good at it. Dak, not too bad. Long shots aren't great, but decent finishing. Good little stats like off the ball, composure. Not bad for someone on that final third there, but for me, I tend to either have a attacking midfielder, either on support or attack. More so support, who drops back that little touch, just creating a little bit more of a kind of a triangle there for the kind of the middle 3. Well, obviously, with these being so far back as well, gives that little option. I think traits like comes deep for the ball, which he has as well. So anyway, he'll have to kind of come back, look for the kind of pass from the midfield there anyway, kind of help out and hopefully start the attacks out wide. Game we've already spoke about all kind of our wingers, inverted winger on either side. Please be inside forwards. Like I say, trick of T I tend not to kind of mess around with these too much. I have tried it, Romdeuter, I think that's the way to say it. For like an empty, so it's a Farrell Constantia save out in Romania, where I use that on the left hand side. Actually worked quite well, to be fair, with the player I had at the time. Can't remember his name. But so by all means, if you feel a bit of a nice little tactic, you're confident with kind of what you're doing, get some good results, you want to change things up a bit. Like, say you may have kind of the next Messi in your team. By all means, turn him to a Trek Batista. Try out a few little things, see what works for you. But this is just, for me, the basic setup. Kind of where I always start with a team like this, with this kind of formation. Another thing I have had success with again, with a Sunderland save, is having these midfielders right in the centre of midfield. Again, it worked in the Championship, not so well in the Premiership. It did work. I just had to buy a better quality of player. I felt as though what I was maybe doing was then giving a little bit of space in between the midfield and the defence. So sometimes you can kind of adapt that, maybe push your midfield up in the team instructions. Maybe I did experiment with kind of changing defenders to a central defender stopper, and even having one as cover. So in my mind, what this one was kind of doing was kind of coming forward, closing your balls down that entered this area. If it did get any through balls, I had 9 here, dropping that back a little bit to try and sweep up any. Did have a bit of success with it. I took it off eventually, but when I say again, when I got the Premiership, and I think I was facing that higher stamp of player. So again, something I may kind of mess around with again and see if it actually did make a difference, or if maybe having that higher line kind of between the defence and the midfield was kind of a better idea. But starting out, stick with this kind of formation there. It always seems solid. See, it's a formation the AI player, so you do kind of. I tend to struggle with this if I play like a 4-3-3 or any other formation. So, but yeah, and again up top, again very subjective, depending on the strike you've got. We know Rusin is kind of adapted to this kind of advanced forward role. He has kind of like the pace, has the finishing, so to speak, off the ball. Could easily be pressing forward, complete forward if you have some of that ability. But yeah, and that's kind of the general setup. Like I say, you can always adapt, you can always change. Kind of certainly this role here, Secundia Volante on either support or attack, deep line playmaker, kind of roaming playmaker. Again, if you have that kind of ability, I think in Barcelona's, I think kind of De Jongs and all that have that kind of ability to play that role particularly well. So experiment again with a partner here. I always go for ball winning midfielder, and either on defend or support, depending on how I think my team is in that particular league. Half back's not a bad one to experiment with. Defensive midfielder as well, something I use quite often on defend. So, but that's kind of the partnership I have. I think as you get better, your team gets better. You maybe kind of improve your defense. You can maybe kind of put these on support, give it a little bit more creative role as well if you have that style of player. But for me, this kind of starting out very compact, very balanced, good kind of goal analysis there. We're pretty much covered all over, even with those deep lying kind of midfielders. We're not giving away too much across the kind of the pitch there. So hopefully give you some ideas there and make kind of player roles. Like I say, it's all about experimenting. Keep an eye on your team. Use your data hub when it becomes available. I might do a little video on that at some point as well. See how I use it. Like I say, I'm not an expert. I know it's quite in depth, and I know a lot of people just don't bother. But sometimes you can get some good information off if you know where to look in the right areas. But yeah, so pretty much my standard kind of go-to formation for the player roles for this formation. So moving on to the mentality. Again, I always start with positive. I do change it up in game sometimes if I'm going to bring it back a little bit, or if I create a second more defensive version of this tactic. Again, I might talk about that another time. How to kind of bring things back a bit and dial back on kind of the attacking kind of mentality, if you like. So, but that's where I always start out. Again, nothing wrong with kind of keeping that as it is, just on kind of in the middle, fairly wide. Again, there's also an argument you can go wider and extremely wide, which I have done in the past. Obviously, you've got them wide players, you've got your wing backs, your full backs, you've got players cutting in, you've got kind of attacking inside, inverted wings, inside forward. So, by all means, use those wide players as and when you can. I tend to just dial it back a little bit and have it just off there. Passing to space, again, I mentioned before, not something I tend to use a lot of unless I'm maybe playing a little bit more direct, playing against a team that's maybe really aggressive with a high line. And I've got pacey forwards, pacey wide men, who can play balls in, get behind the defence, hopefully nick a goal. But more often than not, I tend to just leave that off. Certainly for this tactic anyway, I will be. Again, I spoke about it before. You've got the options to kind of go overlap left, overlap right, focus play down the left, focus play down the right. I tend to maybe leave this again once we play to get a lot more as a cohesive unit. Again, I mentioned that before. One time I do use this, it's maybe like a little tip, I suppose, is when I'm playing against the AI and they're using the flat back five. I found that targeting the wing backs is perfect against that formation. Sometimes I feel like I struggle if I don't kind of play wider and focus play down the left and right, and then target the wing backs or tackle harder, press often, that kind of thing. And I find that it works really effective against a flat back five. If I don't do that, I tend to feel as though I get kind of caught into the middle and they just counter attack. I do tend to concede goals. So something to bear in mind. As your team gets better, maybe you kind of overlap left, overlap right. It's a good little thing to drop in if your kind of results kind of come January time, you feel as though you're dropping off and you want to freshen things up, try something a little bit different. Maybe drop something like that in. And then playing against a flat back five, focus your player down the left and right, really exploit those kind of single wing backs on either side, put pressure on them, try and get the ball back off them. And yeah, I think you will find that you may get results. But for the moment, I always leave that off. Mixed crosses, I always go low crosses on this. Work ball in the box, like I spoke about before. If you find yourself getting 40 odd shots, 8 on target, not just going any goals out of that. Try and be a little bit more kind of slower about things, more methodical, work ball in the box. Obviously, you should see a difference. Play out of defence, as always. I like to control possession. I'm trying to boot the ball just out there anywhere. Play out of defence, control possession. Certainly, if you've got kind of good ball playing defenders, kind of helps. Passing directness, again, for me, it's about possession. I like to have possession. I like my team to have the ball. So, shorter passing, as always. Tempo, a mix between standard and slightly higher. If I had a better quality of team, I've spoke about before again, your Man Cities, your Liverpools, your Arsenals, you can probably go higher than that, really ping the ball out. But I tend to just dial back a little bit. If I feel as though I'm still not, I'm in possession, or I'm losing the ball, I'm getting counter-attacked, or I'm checking the data hub and I'm losing the ball in certain areas, like I say, I may bring this back a little bit and try and hold on to the ball a lot more. To set pieces, game, maybe lower league teams. Run at defence is something I do have on, knowing the players I've got up front. So I'm not going to be Clark's, be Roberts's, which I think, to be honest with you, will probably run at the defence anyway. Both got cut inside from both wings. Likes to beat opponent repeatedly, runs the ball often, gets forward whenever possible. So got the right traits. Not so much Clark as many, but knocks the ball past opponent, cuts inside anyway. So again, you can have that on, see how it works out. I don't want every player doing that, maybe. So I mean, obviously, I know I've got wing backs cutting as well, so do I want them to run at defence as well? Maybe not. So I'll see how that goes. Take it off if I feel it's getting a bit silly and I'm losing possession without really creating much. So, but not a bad thing to have. Again, along with being more expressive, you've got the players to do it, got the flair, got the skill, got the ability. Certainly put that on. But again, personal preference, monitor it, see how it goes, take it off if you feel it's not adding value, or again, you're losing possession. So in transition, again, always with my tactics, my kind of setup, it's counter, press, and counter. Again, I could do a dial back version of this where I tend to have maybe these just off, and I just have nothing, so they kind of just keep the shape, nothing crazy, just dial everything back a bit, keep possession. But I'll do the second maybe another time. I think it could be another kind of counter to the tactics I'm doing. I'll do dial back versions, or maybe close games down up against big teams. So, but this for the moment, we're assuming that we want to be positive, we want to be aggressive, we want to win these games. This is how I'll go about it. So, distribute the centre backs. Again, if I have good full backs, good with the ball, quick, pacey, able to kind of dribble that ball, take that ball high up the pitch, I'll keep that as well. But I like to keep it simple, compact, distribute the centre backs, take short kicks, either have that on or roll it out, either or. Again, defensive shape, as always, a high press. I always start off with the standard defensive line. I have tried moving that up at times to kind of close that gap between defence and midfield, like I spoke about before, or midfield and attack, should we say. Maybe it's kind of close that gap that gets created in the middle. But again, for this league, stick to standard defensive line. Should the press more often, never really go more than that. I think it just draws too many fouls, puts extra pressure on your players energy wise. So just keep that as it is. Short goalkeeper distribution. Again, like I mentioned before, I have stuck in, or I assign individual instructions to the players to tackle harder. Either or for me now. I think I spoke about the 4-3-3. I tend to find if I have everything on, players getting stuck in and getting stuck in, players tackling harder and getting stuck in, I tend to find and give away free kicks, excessive amount of kind of set pieces and cards, etc. So this is where I do now, either or. Again, I have used these in the past. Step up more may not be a bad one to have, again, to close them gaps between kind of defence and midfield. Not so much in this case. If I had those midfielders higher up, I may instruct the defensive line to step up more, again, to close them gaps that I mentioned before. But more often than not, I just leave it off to see how it develops. I have used these again in the past, and it's one of them things where just monitor, have a look at the highlights. If you have time, have a look at your kind of 3D match engine. Are you kind of conceding a lot of goals from the outside? Are you getting through balls played in the middle? Trying to, again, play around with these, see if it does help. If not, look at your defensive line, look at your defenders, etc. But I tend to leave this alone. Maybe try something every now and again if I've exhausted all of the possibilities. So that's pretty much it. for this tactic. So we've said about team, we've talked about different player roles for this formation. We spoke about obviously team instructions, PIs, the game. Entirely up to yourself. Like I say, I tend to leave it. I found that this version less is more. I tend not to mess around too much. I find if you kind of get too complicated, things just don't go as you expect. I think things fall apart a bit. So things I may have, like say, for the attack midfielder has no instructions. So I may add things like get further forward if I want to be a bit more aggressive, take more risks if he has good passing ability, dribble more if I want to get hold of that ball and really drive into that kind of attacking third. Moving to channels maybe it's not a bad one. Kind of maybe draw them defenders out a bit, but overall, I tend to just keep things how they are. Spoke about the wing backs. See, I like to add put inside with the ball now and again. So they act as like inverted wing backs, I suppose, but maybe not to the extent where they inverted wing back on support and they hit this midfield. Hopefully, in my mind, they're kind of coming up, putting in here somewhere, and looking for their kind of front four in and around the box. Seemed to work really well. Like I say, when I tried it, but let me know what you think. Like I say, there's an option to maybe make them inverted wing backs if you have a particularly aggressive midfielder, for example, a Segunde Volante. If you don't want to play that kind of libero role, Segunde Volante could be up here somewhere. Inverted wing back will then kind of drop in this midfield if you have a player of that ability. Game, mess around, see what you think, but I always like to start with the basics, just see what my team behaves, maybe try to get creative with one or two roles. But yeah, overall, I think that's pretty much how I build my 4-2-3-1. Like say, there is little variations of it. We spoke about pushing the midfields further up, but overall, this is how I started. And like I say, please drop a like, subscribe. Next one, I think I may do a diamond. It's something I've done on my Schalke save at the moment. See if you have time, pop over and watch my kind of rebuilding Schalke series. I created a diamond on there, 442 diamond. But I may do that next as a kind of a video. So, but yeah, thanks for watching. Bye bye.